So, what I've noticed is the biggest issue that we have when it comes to bank reconciliation is knowing where I must now fix this. So, before we jump into doing bank reconciliations, we must first just understand where things need to be changed, why we are changing it, why are we including it in the cash journals or in the bank reconciliation statement. So over here, we're not just going to read transactions and we are going to say whether we must fix the transaction in our books or whether it must happen on the bank reconciliation statement. So remember that the cash journals, this is your books. This is you saying that I forgot about something. Um, sorry, I forgot about something or I made an error, so I need to fix my books. So we can also ask you to please calculate the correct bank account balance, and this is what it is, right? Then the bank reconciliation is taking the bank statement and saying that the bank maybe had some errors or the bank forgot about some transactions. So we need to indicate that on the bank reconciliation statement because the bank needs to make some changes in order for them to reflect the same balance that we have. So if it is something that you did wrong or that you omitted from your records, it may not go to the bank reconciliation statement. Your errors, your omissions, your transactions that you, for some odd reason, just made a mistake with, needs to be fixed in your books. If the bank made an error, you cannot now go and include that error in your books because then you will not be accurate. So you need to indicate on the bank reconciliation statement that the bank made an error that they will fix, and therefore their balance will change. Okay, so we always start with the bank statements month end balance and we just make the adjustments. Whereas with our books, we are going to start with our provisional total. So in other words, what do we currently have in the CRJ and the CPJ? And then we're just going to make adjustments accordingly. Okay, so transaction number 2 says that the month end balance of the current bank statement is favorable. So remember, in your bank reconciliation statement, you are starting with your bank statement balance at month end, and then you will make the needed adjustments. Whereas your bank account balance will be your books, your starting point. Then number 3, an amount on an EFT was overstated in the CPJ. So in other words, you made a mistake, right? So you need to fix your books. It's an EFT in the CPJ that you recorded as an amount that was higher than the actual payment made. So you have more in your CPJ than what you should have. You may not have negative entries in your CPJ. So in order to now remove the excess payment that you have included in your CPJ, you will reverse that in your CRJ. So you, for instance, had 1,000 Rand in your CPJ. It should have actually been 500 Rand. So you can't have a negative 500 in your CPJ. Therefore, you will take it to your CRJ in order to get rid of that overstated amount. Then, cancellation of an EFT that has been issued within the bank's time frame. So in other words, you had an amount in your CPJ for an EFT payment that you made. But they are now saying that this has been cancelled. So in other words, it shouldn't be in the CPJ because the transaction wasn't, it didn't go through, it was cancelled. So you need to reverse that payment with a CRJ transaction. The month-end balance of the current bank statement is favorable. So it's the same as number 2. There's a current bank statement, therefore it's going to show on your bank recon. Then EFTs not reflected on the bank statement. So it's nothing about an error that you made. That's not why it's not reflecting on your bank statement. The only issue here is that you have now recorded the EFT, but it's not reflecting on your bank statement yet. So it could be that this wasn't within the bank's time frame. So in other words, you made the payment, this EFT payment on the 31st of May. And then by the 31st of May on your bank statement, it had not yet reflected because there's a time delay. So you are going to include that in your bank reconciliation statement whilst you wait for the bank to show that on the bank statement. An amount on an EFT was understated in the CPJ. So in other words, you, for instance, recorded that the EFT payment that you made was 800 Rand, but it was actually 1,000 Rand. So you just need to go to your CPJ and account for that additional amount that you omitted from your record. So understatement means I now need to add on. If it was overstated, it means that I need to remove. Number 8, amount on an EFT received was understated in the CRJ. So now you said that you received less than what you actually received. So you saw on the bank statement that I actually received 2,000 Rand. I only recorded 200 Rand. Human error. So I'm just going to go to the CRJ and I'm going to record the additional amount not yet shown in my CRJ. Okay, so the previous month end balance of the bank statement was favorable. So the previous month, you're not going to include the previous month's bank statement balance anywhere because you are now looking at the current month. So there's no entry there. Bank charges duplicated in error on the bank statement. So the bank statement has the error. You are not going to now record that error in your books. You are going to indicate on the bank reconciliation statement that the bank has to please now fix this for you in the next month. Then interest on overdraft. Remember that interest and bank charges, whether it be interest that you received or interest that you paid, that will reflect on your bank statement. It's only once you see it on your bank statement that you will have evidence of this transaction. So that's your source document. So before looking at the bank statement, you wouldn't have known what the amount was that you had to pay. Therefore, you wouldn't have recorded the transaction. So interest and bank charges that you see on your bank statement will always be amounts that you must still record in your CPJ if it's a payment. If it is a receipt, then your CRJ. Okay, cancellation of discount on a payment received incorrectly given. So cancellation of discount. Discount is not a payment that you are making or that you are receiving if it is that it's discount received on a payment that you made. But in this case, it's cancellation of discount on a payment received. So in other words, you received money and then you allowed discount. Doesn't mean that you paid or received anything. It will never be on the bank statement. Therefore, there's no entry there. Just because discount is a non-cash item and bank is cash. Then an incorrect debit entry was made in the bank statement. So in other words, the bank said that you paid something, but you actually didn't pay it. They need to fix it. So it's an incorrect entry on the bank statement. Therefore, the bank has to fix this. So it's going to show on my bank reconciliation statement. Rent deposited into the banking account by a tenant. So you didn't issue this tenant with a receipt because you didn't receive it at your business premises. So you didn't realize that this tenant made payment to you. You only saw this receipt when you looked at your bank statement. Therefore, you now have to go to your CRJ and you have to record that entry so that you agree with the bank statement. A direct deposit made by a debtor into the banking account of the business. Once again, it was deposited directly into your bank account. You didn't know about this transaction until you now saw your bank statement. So you need to go to your CRJ and you need to record the transaction. Same with the last one. Interest earned on current banking account. You are only going to see that interest that you received once you receive your bank statement. So that means that you have to go to your CRJ and you have to record the transaction. So that's just a quick and easy, when do I go to my own book? So when do I adjust my bank account balance versus when do I have to show it on my bank reconciliation statement because something went wrong with the bank statement or something is just not on my bank statement yet.